you have any questions, like technical questions, please ask in the chat to one of the Codista members who has this banner like I do. Please keep your mic muted unless you're asking a question during the Q&A. Please be respectful and check us out on Instagram. So right now for this session, we have Erica Yngve with us. So after starting her own fashion brand, Bralessly, for women who want to be comfortably braless and still be modest, Erica Yngve decided to purchase her own manufacturer in 2020. Her goal was to produce her own clothing as well as other up-and-coming fashion brand products at affordable rates while still producing in the US. Erica acquired another business of cut and sewn commercial products in early 2021 and now produces both that brand and Bralessly under Sonoran Stitch Factory, the largest cut and sew operation in southern Arizona. Erica lives with her husband and 3 sons in Arizona, where she enjoys hiking in the beautiful desert, reading, and traveling. So, Erica, if you had yourself, your business, your interests.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, as she said, my name is Erica Yngve. I'm from Tucson, Arizona. And I started Bralessly a couple of years ago. I had a passion for sewing my whole life and design in one way or another. I never was in the fashion industry though until I came up with my Bralessly idea, which is essentially a bust panel that keeps you from, showing everything, so you can be comfortably braless and still be modest. And the more I, spoke to people and women, the more I saw a need for that. So that's where I came up with Bralessly. And I'll delve into that a little bit later in terms of fashion and what you guys are doing, maybe in the Q&A to see where you are and what you're working on. But yeah, I found a problem and I found a solution and I made it happen. So that's Bralessly. And then Sonoran Stitch Factory was Arizona apparel manufacturing, a small little operation that had just moved to Tucson from Green Valley, which is a tiny little place in southern Arizona. And when I started manufacturing with them, I got to know the owner very well, and she was looking to retire and thought it would be great if I bought it. So I agreed, I did. And now I can manufacture my own brand much more efficiently, much more cost effective. And I can dictate a lot of things in the entire vertical stack of services that I offer too for myself and others. I also do commercial sewn products, which are not as sexy or interesting as fashion. Mattress covers, pillow covers, and shower curtains. Yay. But it all works. They're very complementary to each other. I'm able to utilize my sewers and my equipment and my facility to do both. When one is a little bit slow in business, I can ramp up the other side and vice versa. So it's something that I'm just starting, but I see a huge potential in. I know this is more fashion though, so I won't bore you with that anymore, but that's a little bit about me. I am currently up in the White Mountains here in Arizona on vacation with my family. We have what's called rodeo days, which is a holiday no one else in the country or the world, I think, even has. We actually have a very large rodeo that happens, maybe not this year, obviously, but normal years. And we get Thursday and Friday off the end of February. So we always come up here and go skiing. So that's where I am now, in a cabin in the mountains, not at home. So that's a little bit about me. I wanted to talk a little bit. I know I said I just opened up to Q&A, but I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the common issues that I've been seeing. And maybe you guys, depending on where you are, if you have ideas or actually working on something now, maybe it'll give you a better understanding of the path you want to take, because it's a big, wide world out there in terms of fashion and where you want to be with it. So some of the things that I found that, and I experienced myself, is that if you don't know who your audience is, you're never going to go far. You have to pick your target and market it to them. You have to understand all their desires and their problems and what their lifestyle looks like. And that's where you're going to go when you start a fashion brand, if that's what you're interested in. I did a lot of research with Bralessly because I thought, oh, every woman no one wants to wear a bra, but Actually, some still do, which is interesting. And it depends on a lot of different factors. And so I started now narrowing in on two different personas, and I created two different, 10 people. And these women, one was older, maybe 50s, 60s, maybe even later, who didn't care anymore about what people thought of her. And she had a slightly higher income level. She was more environmentally conscious. She wanted to be more authentic in herself, and a few other things. And then I narrowed in on somebody a little bit younger, 35 to about 45-year-old woman. And she most recently has children. They're a little bit older. She doesn't have time for things. She doesn't like to be bound up. It's a lot of, I need to be efficient and fast and moving because I have a lot going on. Career minded, either has a job or something else going on. And so those two things are what I chose. And that helped tremendously in finding information of what designs they liked, what patterns, what fabric types. All those play into a fashion brand when you're starting out. So if you find your audience first and know what problem it is, that will get you on the right path no matter what. You have to find the problem and solve it. Let's see here. And then also I created a value proposition for myself. Like what am I offering as opposed to anybody else out there? And I chose a couple things. Comfortability was one of them, and also environmentally friendly, eco-conscious, which after I did a lot more research, found that it wasn't as high on the list as I thought it was for these women I was targeting, but it's still part of what I want to do personally. So I source my fabrics from bamboos and modals, which are made from beechwood. They're soft, they're sustainable, they're a lot more environmentally friendly in terms of how they are produced, and then how they decompose eventually. And so those are some of the biggest things I find in terms of starting a brand and where trying to figure out where you want to go. And once you figure that out, you decide, this is going to be my value and this is going to be my mission, how I want to be. You're going to be a much stronger leader in terms of your brand and where you go and how people perceive you. There's so much more I could talk about in terms of that, but I wanted to keep it brief and open it up to you guys because I have, like I said, no idea exactly where you are and where you're coming from. And I'd love to answer questions specific to what you're interested in. So that's kind of the gist of Bralessly. And then I went into my own manufacturing, which is a whole nother thing. If you want to do that, it's a lot more technical and a lot more business oriented, which I think you need to when you're starting a brand, because you have to understand, again, like I talked about, your market and how you market to them, and then what platforms you're going to market to. Is it going to be social media, your website, or you're actually going to use some traditional marketing like a radio or some sort of print thing or whatever, which is, depending on who you're marketing to, could be the right way to go. So business plays an important part of it. Creativity is, yes, a little bit, but all these other things are really important. Manufacturing, I don't know what I want to say about that, except for that I love it. It's something I've always enjoyed. I love operations management. I have an MBA, and it made so much sense from every other job I've had. I was in property management. I worked for the Red Cross of Greater Chicago. I had another little business I did importing parts and accessories for off-road vehicles, something totally out there. But all those experiences led me to this point in time where I am pulling from those and using those learned experiences to manufacture and to make this work. I love being able to help other entrepreneurs. And so I have no minimums. I do small and medium batch production, and I'm able to make it work by being really efficient in how I cut and sew, and also offer other services. So all these new startups are all, especially in this last year with COVID, are all e-commerce retailers, because you can't go many places. You still can't go to a store and look at stuff and try things on. So I'm actually marketing to these guys in terms of I can hold your inventory for you, and I can also ship and fulfill for you. So I can do it all. I can help you source fabric. I can help you sample and grade, make patterns is what I mean, and then cut and sew, and then hold your inventory and ship and for you, so you don't have to do anything eventually. I'm targeting to more that established brands, not new ones. The new ones like to do it themselves because it's all about, money and cash flow. But once you get established and you have an ongoing thing, that's where I step in, and my manufacturing process is really beneficial for those kinds of people. So I think that is all, except, yeah, that's all I wanted to say. Be very intentional with your design. It doesn't have to be just how you make your clothing. It's how you source your fabric, where it comes from, how you put it together, who does it? Is it somebody here or somebody else? That all plays into what your value and how your whole brand looks when you're done. And then how you ship it. Is it like with recycled or eco-friendly materials, or is it something that you can recycle? Like some new fashion brands, say return your old stuff, like your old shoes, we'll recycle it, give you a discount on your new stuff. Like there's so many things you can do if you're into that environmental side, or if you're into fair labor side, or if you're into any of those things. So think holistically, not just your design of your garment, but everything and the entire line of process that it takes to create your stuff. So, okay, enough talking. I'll let you guys do some questions.
No, I mean, thank you for that. That was a really insightful introduction. I went off from that. So the next thing we wanted to talk about was where did you start in terms of your career interests? Like, what was your background and your expertise before this?
Yes, so I went into college having no idea what I wanted to do. And my dad was an engineer, and he thought I would be great at that. So I was very analytical. I'm a firstborn, so I'm very A-type and like to do things just right. And going through school, it was just like I'm still, second year, third year, I still didn't know. I had started German in high school, and I said, okay, I can do that. That's easy. I had already taken some AP classes, so I had a lot of credits. I'm like, I can get a degree in that, but what else? And so it kind of fell into business in general, because I thought, oh, I could do international business, and that would be a good fit. I'd love to travel and do stuff like that, but I didn't know what kind of business. Business is so broad. But that's what I ended up with. In my last semester of my senior year, I took a management course, and that just opened my eyes in terms of the possibility of like all my interests, accumulating into one type of industry. And it was manufacturing. So it was making things efficient and fast and quick. And I loved it. But it was my last semester. I'm like, I can't go back and redo it all. So I finished that. I got a job up in Phoenix. I was from Tucson. And it was because of my German, a random weird thing that I took. They had their main supplier was BMW, and they wanted me to do purchasing using my German with them because they're in Germany. So random things, come together sometimes. From there, I went to Chicago. My boyfriend husband at the time, was working there. That's where I got into property management, because it was just a job that I found that a friend knew. A friend gave me, and I learned so much there. I got into Red Cross. And then, when it came time to, I was having children, then I have 3 boys right now. I had our first one there, and I moved back, and I wanted to do something else that was my own. And while I was at home, and so I did a startup. And because I had the business acumen, I could figure things out. I did a importing business, like I said, and then I went into and I did that for about 4 years as a partner. And I was like, yeah, nothing I have a passion for, and I always loved the clothing. So when I got the design, idea, I entered a pitch competition. I won money for it, which was great. That helped me get going on the actual design. And then when the manufacturing company came up for sale, that just, like I said, everything came together right then and there. And now I love going to work where I say, okay, I have this new design. How am I going to price it? How am I going to cost it out? How long is it going to take? I do time studies now. I have so many sewers. I have pods set up for different types of steps, so that's kind of a long-winded answer to your question, but that's where it came from.
That's awesome. So our next question, which I think someone asked as a part of their really big question in the chat, what is the process like from starting with the initial product development to like actually producing the fabrics?
Okay, up front, it takes a long time. People think, oh, maybe I could do it a couple weeks or months. No, it's almost a year or more. That's the biggest misconception people have when they come to me. I have this great idea for this whatever piece of clothing or, accessory or even a bag or functionality. Yeah, I want to get it going so I can sell it this summer. I'm like, whoa, not even close. There is so much that goes into it. Yes, we have technology in our industry, but there's still so much you have to do in person and physically with a human being. So the first process is getting your designs and sketches. So you have your concept. And I always tell my clients to find something similar that inspired you. So let's just say it's a shirt, okay? Maybe it's an athletic shirt. What have you seen out there that you like? And then add your specific creativity to it. So find something similar because that helps a lot in terms of your concept. Do a mood board even, like I want it to be this color scheme, or I want it to have this feel like aggressive or powerful or strong, like put pictures of those things that come to your mind. So you can narrow in on exactly what it is you're creating. Then I send them to my pattern maker. She is fantastic. She is very old school. She doesn't do CAD design, which a lot of people do. There's pros and cons on that. But she is old school and she will actually talk to you and sit with you and go, okay, what's your concept? I have what's called a block pattern of a shirt. Tell me how you want it changed and what's different, what your vision is. And they work through her. She creates a first pattern, and it's usually a mid-size, not high, not large or small. You want a mid-size to go from, because when you grade, as in make things bigger or smaller, it's easier to start in the middle. And so she makes that. And while she's doing that, or before, you actually start sourcing fabric. Fabric is your biggest bottleneck when you start, because in your mind, you may think, oh, I can find anything I want wherever, but no, sometimes you can't, and that will affect your design. So if you can't find the right fabric, you might have to change your design. So find some sample fabrics that you like, and once your sample pattern is made, you can start creating your actual samples. Then you do a fit with the model or yourself, whoever. I recommend somebody else, not yourself. And then you revise and you revise and you revise until you get it's exactly right. Sometimes it's only one or two revisions, sometimes it's more. And then once you got that fit down, then you grade. And I recommend actually fitting each size too to a model, because yes, a lot of people like to skip that step and say, oh, it's just a formula. You go up X amount per size. No, body types are not that way, especially women. And depending on how your design, how you want it to look on somebody, it is a lot more complicated than that. So I recommend doing a fit on every size, which is a lot. See where I said, like, it takes a long time. And then you order your production fabric. So that's different from your sample fabric. Your sample fabric is a couple of yards of this or that, depending on what you get. Production fabric is like a roll maybe or two. It depends on how much you want to do. A roll is at least 50, 60 yards. And that's a whole nother thing we can go into eventually someday, but sourcing is a big thing now. There's not many mills in the US, so you've got to find things elsewhere. I wish there were. Maybe that's the goal of mine someday too, to make my own mill. Then you start with cut and sew. So then we cut the pattern out and we sew it. And then you decide how you want to go from there. Like I said, we hold it sometimes and pack and ship, depending on orders. We link with your ordering system on an app from your website, or you take it back, it's delivered directly to you and you handle that all. So it is a long process, over a year, I'd say, starting from the beginning. Once you have a slope or a block pattern, it is a lot easier because now you know your fit, especially with all your sizes, and you can tweak that as your designs go. But if you start doing different things like pants, skirts, dresses, and you need another block pattern for that. So once you get going, it's a little bit easier, kind of like over the hill, and it's, you can go a little faster. But that first part is, don't rush it. Have patience.
Yeah. Interesting. That was really insightful.
Yes.
So that was the technical side, but in terms of the business side, so how do you maintain professionalism in your work? With challenges when someone's being like unfair or unreasonable, just how do you overcome that?
Yes, that's a good one. I have a recent example of that. So we had, over the holidays, we were shipping one of my clients a small run every week. She had a couple styles of skirt, a short, a legging, and a climbing pant. And so we'd ship, our agreement was we'd ship, 20 to 30 pieces every week. because that's how she had set it up with her pre-orders or whatever it was she had. And right before Christmas, we sent out a shipment. And it was returned to sender because there was one letter off, because instead of peach tree, it was pear tree or whatever. So it had been sent many, many times. That address is in our system, whatever, and it had been delivered. Okay, great. But this time they just said, nope, that's wrong. The street address number was the same, the zip code, everything else was correct, but that one letter. So it got sent back to us, but because of the holiday rush in the postal system, it took 6 weeks to get back to us. And that meant her sales, she had angry customers. And I get that. But, yes, it was my problem that I did, it was my mistake. But normally that would have been resolved within 2 or 3 days. They would send it back. I would have shipped it, express exactly immediately. So professionalism is hard when people are very angry at you, because this is it's more sentimental, especially when you're designing clothes and you're starting a business. It's your baby, and when somebody doesn't do something correctly, it makes a different animal come out. So my response was, okay, everything we do from now on is going to be express shipped. I will pay the difference. I will make sure you have everything done well. And I went over and above to, get her stuff to her even faster than I normally would have, because yes, when you're in retail, it's like customer is always right. But in the fashion world with designers, it's another ball game, because like I said, it's their baby. It's not a product that they sell. It's them, it's their identity. So yes, I took a hit on that in terms of my profit margin, but it was worth it, because in the end, she felt satisfied. She was willing to spread, share my her experience and my business with others. Even though it was a lot of back and forth, it was worth all that loss of money to gain that customer back, because she was able to then give me more referrals. It's a fine line when you're starting out, because you have a lot of issues with cash flow, and business side is hard because your margins are very small. You have a high labor rate here. In Arizona, our minimum wage is $12.15 an hour. And with taxes and unemployment insurance, et cetera, I pay $14.03 an hour for that. And then you add on top of that your overhead, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm looking at $19, $20 an hour, for something that in China could be made for $2 or $3 an hour. So it's rough, but I think building a good customer base and a good reputation, even in your own brand, is worth it.
Good to know. Okay, so this is pretty much kind of a similar question, but what were some of the challenges that you faced during the process, like of creating this, and how did you grow from it? I know that you covered some of this in your previous answer, but if there's anything else that you have to add to that.
Challenges, yes. Challenges, finding my biggest challenge, which I just alluded to, is my labor pool, my sewers. Sewing is not a big more. Back in the day, I learned it through 4-H. I don't know if any of you know what 4-H is, but it's a children's program that is mostly agricultural based. So you learn how to raise animals. I raised some swine. I sold them at market. We were a little bit more rural down in Tucson where we live. So we had that opportunity. My mom has horses, goats, whatever, ranch style, but it also has some other things, a little bit more STEM now, and it had sewing, cooking, all those things. And along with that, it was a lot of presentation. So you showed your products or whatever you made during the year at the fair, and you get judged for it. And so that's where I learned sewing. A lot of people learn it from their mothers or grandmothers, but it's not like there's a school you go to learn to sew. You don't just, I want to sew, so there's a lot of, I've utilized a lot of social service agencies, because I'm also big on helping refugees. And a lot of them have come from areas like in the Middle East, where there is massive sewing factories. And so I've been able to utilize that if I can find them when they come here. But at this point, I'm going to be partnering with a couple other nonprofits and our local community college to start my own training program, because I just can't find it. My solution is that I will just create my own. If I can't find it somewhere, I'm going to create my own. So that's a biggest problem right now, is finding good sewers, skilled sewers. Some people can just do a straight stitch. That's great. Learning how to do a serger using a serger machine or a cover stitch or flat lock. There's all kinds. Industrial sewing is so different than home sewing, but I can train you. And that's where I'm going to go from here. That's my biggest challenge right now.
That does sound tough, and I'm glad that you found a way to, combat the issue. So, you're talking so much about your challenges and problems that you've had. So how do you keep a positive outlook on this, like on your work in total?
Yes. A lot of it's because I love what I do. I love creating, I love designing, but I love the technical side as well. I enjoy meeting new people. I am more reclusive than outgoing. So that's a little bit of a challenge for me. I don't have to deal with the public a lot, but if I can deal one-on-one with designers, that works perfectly for what I do and who I am. And when I start developing relationships one-on-one, that just is so beneficial, and just it feels good to be able to help others do what they love, and get their passion moving as well, just like I did. I love, like I said before, the efficiencies. I love the manufacturing side of it. Like I said, the shower curtains isn't super fun and exciting, but it has really good margins, and you can get really, really, really nitpicky in how fast you can get something done. So I can say, we can manufacture 295 pillow covers a day using this machine if we have the fabric and everything set up ready to go. But when it's off, I can figure out where the problem is immediately, and I can fix it, and then I can improve it a little bit, and I have a higher goal. Okay, now we're going to make 305 today, or 310. That's so fun to me. Most people don't think it's fun. But on the apparel side, that is more like custom, because I do small and medium batches. And so it's creating a quality product that makes it enjoyable for me. Something that the designer goes, yes, I love this, and that they can sell, and their clients, their customers go, yes, I love this. And their brands are, built and move faster. And just because, we took that time to put that quality in. So there's a lot of wonderful things, a lot of good things that come out of it. It's not all challenging.
I love that your main goal is the quality, and it's always something that people look for when they shop. So that's amazing. So the next thing is, I know that your business is fairly recent, like it's fairly new, but how were you involved in like leadership activities through your school and career? Like what do you think high school students and college students, or what did you do that you believe helped you? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about German, which helped, but like, what can these girls do that can help them?
Yes, get involved, volunteer, or find a part-time job. Either way, immediately. Like, don't make it your life, but get out of your classroom and just your studies. If you want to do something, you need to set yourself apart from everyone else. So find something that's different and unique. And it could just, be sports, or academic clubs. It can be working at a retail shop, and learning how to do more than just, selling the clothes, going in the back end and figuring out how the shipping comes in, and how to, get it out on the floor and do merchandising. Like just simple things that set you apart. Find something super different and unique. And show a little bit of commitment to it. So don't do it for like a month or two and quit. Do it for a year or two. They show that you need at least 2 years of something on your high school or college resume to show commitment to either a recruiter or a job prospector, whoever it is. And you don't have to kill yourself. You can still enjoy your life. But yeah, you need to find 1 or 2 things that is different. My niece is getting into climbing, of all things, but that shows up in her resume. It's very different. Whatever, and she loves outdoors. I don't know what she wants to go into eventually, but something different. My son, he loves the guitar, but he's choosing to do the ukulele because it's different. If you're into fashion, design your own fashion, sell it somewhere, even if it's just a pop-up shop somewhere, or get your parents to help you go to the whatever, swap meet, whatever, set up a stand, like take initiative and try something new. failing is such a good thing. And I know it sounds bad, but trying something and failing will get you light years beyond somebody who takes a conservative and doesn't do anything and just sticks to the same little thing. Always. I was in, like I said, 4-H. I did violin. I was in softball and volleyball. And I loved it because it kept me going and it was things that I enjoyed. I was involved in my church youth group. I volunteered. I helped some elderly people with shut-ins with some of their grocery shopping. Like, it doesn't have to be huge. Pick one or two things and try to stand out from the crowd. Yeah.
That's great advice. Thank you for that.
Mhm.
So I'm sure there are very few women leaders in business, but did you have any role models when you were starting your business or even now?
Yeah, my mom was a big one. She did so many things and made it successful raising 4 kids. Like, you always, my grandmother was another one. She went through World War II. She lost her husband, but she came out and she started her own little thing in Tucson, Arizona. She was a leader in the community. She volunteered for the 4-H club. I say that a lot. Those are great. And then somebody that was through my aunt, not related, but it was her mother-in-law, random weird connection. She decided that she wanted to be more than just a teacher, which in itself is such an honorable and inspiring thing. She wanted to be one of the first principals in the 1950s in Tucson of a public school, and she went after it and did it. And that was amazing. Like, I knew her when she was in her 80s, and the powerhouse. Like, she's like, I found what I wanted to do. I went after it. Back then women weren't, it was great for them to be preschool, kindergarten, first grade teachers, but administration, yeah, it took a lot. She went after it. She got her master's in education and she did it. And that's something, those are my role models. And what I learned from them is don't feel like you have to fit a certain mold to get somewhere. If you have an idea and it doesn't work in your life situation, or maybe eventually you want to have children or family or whatever, make it work for you because you can. There's no limitations. I have a friend who's an ophthalmologist and I doctor. She didn't want to work full time after she graduated, even though she was a doctor. And everyone's like, you worked so hard to become a doctor. Why don't you want to work full time? She's like, I have 2 kids. I want to work 3 days a week. And that's it. And she found a partner who was willing to do it. And she's doing it. So, you don't have to fit into a mold. Find somebody who inspires you. It's hard. Finding a mentor is hard. Network, talk to people, talk to people, talk to people. And you'll eventually find somebody who might be willing to work with you, or at least you can follow and get inspiration from. It took me a long time to find a good mentor, and I'm still looking for one in my space. We'll see.
Okay. So the next one, which I'm sure everyone's looking forward to hearing. What specific advice do you have for everyone on this call or anyone who wants to enter a leadership or something in business position, but doesn't think they have the confidence to do so?
Yes. If you don't think you have the confidence, look back at what you've already done. It's interesting with women and females. When we're young, there's so many studies that show this. Like, we're at the same level as males up until about just pre-puberty, 10, 11, 12-ish. Then something happens, puberty essentially, and we all of a sudden go, oh, I'm not as good. And your confidence fails, even though your intellect is still the same. That never changes. Yes, you grow apart in physical strength maybe, but up until that point, you can still do the same sports, the same academic, anything. And it's fascinating that females have something that tells them, no, you can't do it anymore. And I'm trying to figure out what's, unless you have a good, strong mom or an aunt or a good female mentor that tells you, no, you can. That's a hard one to solve right now. So I have 3 boys, which is interesting because they're very already confident, but I'm instilling them, the thing that I can do now is saying, females are just, they're right there with you your whole life. Don't ever think that there's something different or treat them that way. So that's what I can do, I guess. Self-confidence. Find something you love to do and just do it for a while. And then you'll see how good you are at it. And that, I think, will build self-confidence. Choose good friends, choose a good network. That's the best thing I could think of, because unless you have a mentor or whatever else, it's your peers going to build you up and make you feel like you can do something. It's it's hard because you think, oh, I just, I'm drawn to somebody I like or I want to be friends with, but be more intentional. Oh, okay, where do they come from? Are they going to drag me down? Or are they going to build me up? So, starting young, that's where I say you can get your confidence. And then know like the sky's the limit and you can make it whatever you want. You don't have to fit into a box, like I said earlier. If this isn't going to work for you, find another way. Don't limit yourself.
Awesome. Okay, so this is our last question that's coming from me, like from our list, but I see that we have a lot in the chat. So after this, we can get to that. So if you guys have any more questions, please put them in there. But our last question, and something I'm really excited to hear about from you, where do you see your work in the next 10 years? Like, where do you see yourself in your business?
Yes, I see us expanding to multiple locations around Arizona, maybe even the Southwest US. Manufacturing has such demand. I get inquiries a couple of times a week, and I have to start saying no now because I cannot do it all. There's just not many cut and sew operations out there that can handle even medium-sized batch production. So I can see myself growing into multiple facilities, locations, specializing in different types of apparel. And then doing some great partnerships with workforce development training, getting people trained, not just sewing, but warehouse operations, shipping and fulfillment, sourcing. Like there's so many things, more pattern making. And the digital, there's tech that comes into it too. So I'm hoping to, get my factory a little more automated so I can actually do the creative stuff with people, the quality sewing that needs to happen. Because some people say, oh, that's all going to be automated eventually, but no, I disagree. There's a labor force that is still out there that is still needing jobs, and they aren't going to be the ones that are running the businesses. They're going to be the ones who keep the businesses going from the middle or lower ends. And I feel like I need to be able to provide that. So I'm big on providing jobs, working in our community for whatever issues come up. I'm big on women and empowerment. And I have a lot of single moms who work for me. And I will grow in that regard. And we'll see. I have other aspirations, but yeah, we'll get to those.
Awesome. Okay, so that's all it's from us. But there's a lot of questions in the chat, especially at the beginning from Kelsey. Kelsey, if you want to unmute and ask these questions, you can do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so I was really, really interested in how you talked about sourcing sustainable fabrics. And I was wondering if you try to have sustainable manufacturing and like paying your workers minimum wage, fair trade, if you're also very interested in that, because I love learning about sustainable fashion and I just think what your company's doing is super cool.
Yes. I pick the fabrics on how I want them to perform. So if it needs to be comfortable and soft, I look for stuff like that. I have a couple of vendors up in Canada that I work with right now that are really great in pulling out all kinds of innovative alternative textiles. There's a company in Arizona that's using stuff like cactus to create a vegan leather. The fabric innovation right now is astronomical. It's amazing. It's just getting the mills to make it, because right now it's all small batch and trying to find clients that'll use it in their clothing. But like I said, I have two vendors up in Canada that I work with. And the only reason I found them was I went to a textile convention. I was in LA textile show. They have it twice a year, but with COVID, it's online, which isn't the same because as a designer, you need to go and touch and feel and see how it drapes and how it hangs and understand the complexities of it. And that's something that's going to be very difficult to solve for if we can't go back in person eventually, which we will. But that's something that technology still can't solve because we still have to see it in person. So a lot of your vendors will send you sample cards, or header cards, which is like a piece of paper with swatches of fabric on it, so you can actually see it and touch it. And then once you decide which colorway or which style you like, they will send you, like I said, sample fabric yardage. It costs a lot more per yard for sure, but sometimes there's cutting fees because they have to cut through a roll or whatever. But it's worth it to find the right fabric. Sustainability is huge. Textile Insight is an e-mag I would recommend subscribing to. It's free. And they have all kinds of cool new things that come out, and they share them in your e-mag, and it's something easy and fun to do. So I recommend that. Let me look at your other questions. Yes, definitely. Sustainability does affect your price for sure. You have to educate your consumer. We have to do a better job of that anyway in this fashion industry. Your clothing shouldn't cost $2 or $3, or your lunch. It should cost a lot more, because if you're using good fabric that will last and you're having fair wages, people who make fair wages make it, it should cost a lot more than what we're used to, which is hard to say because I love a good deal. But if you're looking at sustainability as a part of your brand, then you need to start learning how to educate your consumer and your target market and go, this is how much it costs because of this, this, and this. And it's going to be a challenge. It's something that whole industry needs to work on. Getting our consumers on what it really costs. How did you market your product? Facebook is funny because you guys are probably on Instagram and TikTok and all these other things, but Facebook is more of an older people thing. And that's where I found my market. And I did some print, but a lot of it's referrals. And I started doing even in-home shows, which sounds old school, like Mary Kay or, Tupperware parties way back in the 50s and 60s. And even some people do it today still with Pampered Chef or whatever. But that is how I got started for some of it before COVID happened, because you bring all your friends who are like-minded in some way, and you show them, and you can convince one or two, and they'll convince the rest of their circle, which will convince the next circle, and so on. So those are alternative sales channels you can look at. But if you're looking at a younger market, definitely Instagram, those kinds of things, because it's image-based. And if you tell your story with it, they can some loyal followers. Did your past job help you accomplish what you have achieved now? Yes. Yes, for sure. Everything I've learned in every job. I'm a firm believer that, it may take you different way, getting to where you want to be, or your vision, or what some people call destiny. I don't know, but what you're supposed to be doing can look a lot different from everyone. And you may take other paths than you think it should be to get there, but you'll get there eventually somehow. And all those other ways that you took to get there have some sort of meaning and value, and learn from it. Like I said, failing is such a good thing because you learn from it. So don't be afraid of that. If you think you are in the wrong path, or you take the wrong job out of college or high school and, oh, it's not the right way, don't think of it that way. Think, okay, what can I learn from this opportunity? I think that's all the questions for you, Kelsey.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
one more. And it was, what is your size inclusivity range, and how did you decide what sizes you wanted to use?
Yes. I just started out with extra small to extra large, but I'm finding my clientele, which I'm starting on, goes larger, to at least 3XL. And a lot of it, I have two sizing issues. I have body size and boob size. So it's a little bit more complex. And I'm starting to look into, it is almost more custom style, but I can do it now that I manufacture my own clothing, because I can, manage my quantities and my orders, and I can even do pre-orders because I can manufacture it within 2 or 3 days if I need to. So I don't have to hold inventory if a size isn't big enough. So that's something unique to me that I'm getting into, and I'm really enjoying, because I can offer the sizes that women need. So it's 2 sizes. So I eventually it'll be like boob size and then body size, and you'll be able to custom pick something in the works that I'm working on. What my boob size, because some are larger women with small boobs and some are small women with large boobs, and it makes a difference. So if I can add those 2 factors in my sizing, and then do pre-orders, and then do almost manufacturing on demand, that's how I'm going to solve that problem. A lot of people don't have that luxury though. So it's something that we'll see how it's solved.
Thank you so much for answering my question.
Yes,
Could you put a
thank
link
you.
to your website? Do you have a website you could link so we can see your product
Yes.
and all the information?
Yes,
While she does that, Suchita, I saw that you had a question in the chat. If you want to unmute and ask that, you definitely can do that.
So how much production fabric do you order like your clothing? Is it based on bulk order?
I'm sorry, I missed the first part. How much do I order in fabric?
Yes.
How much do I order in fabric? Yeah, when I started at a fashion incubator up in Tempe in Phoenix. And that's a great place to start, and I will give you that too. Their mission is to also help up and coming brands, and I'm starting to lean towards helping more established brands so I can get more efficient and offer more services. So we are still complimentary, but they're called Fabric, Fabric. It's called Fashion and Business Resource Innovation Center, Fabric Tempe or Fabric Innovator. And I got to look it up because they just redid their website and changed their name slightly. That's where I started, and they recommend doing small production runs to start unless you have pre-orders. So you don't want to, in case you get something wrong, maybe your fit's wrong or something happens or whatever, you aren't stuck with a lot of inventory. So I started with a production run of 40 to 50 shirts in 2 different styles, and that was just right. And depending on how much your shirt takes, my shirt took about 3/4 of a yard, plus I had another fabric for the panel insert that I use. So I could calculate, okay, here's how big my pattern is. Rolls are usually 55 to 60 inches wide. How many pattern pieces can I get on there going against the grain? You have to know a little bit about how patterns work and how they lay out on fabric to understand how much fabric each piece will take. And then you estimate, okay, I'm going to multiply that by X amount. You do an average because you'll have multiple sizes. There's so much to go into that, but I recommend fabric because they will help you with all that. And then I recommend 15 to 20% more than what you need, because there's always issues with fabric. There's selvage issues where it goes wide and then narrow and wide and narrow, and depends on the mill and how it's manufactured. And then maybe there's a mistake in cutting, so you'll need a little extra because they went they went right through the pattern or something, So, but when you're starting out with sample fabric, I'd say 5 yards is a good, easy number if you're doing something basic like a shirt, pants, shorts, whatever, even a light jacket or whatever. You can get 2 or 3 pieces out of about 5 yards, depending on the complexity. And I try and be as simple as possible. A lot of designers want to go right out the door with something really cool and expensive and whatever. I say start more narrow and small and add to it, because you'll realize really fast how much it costs, and it's a lot. So yeah, I'd say 5 yards is a good one, and then you can get a couple of those different styles and different things just to compare and contrast. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay. You can even start with Joann Fabrics, or whatever you have, Michael's, whatever you have, like hobby stores. Go take a look and just feel every feel it. I highly recommend just touch and feel and pull it out and see how it hangs and drapes. And then get a couple of yards and play around. There's a lot of people who just do sustainable stuff by recycling. They go to thrift stores and find larger pieces of clothing and just cut them up for the fabric and use them on new things. That's a wonderful idea. That's fantastic. It takes a lot more effort, and you have to charge a whole lot more because it's more custom, but it's a great way to recycle clothing. How much was my initial investment? Let's see. So I started with fabric, and they offer consulting and training classes. You can take classes, you can do a consulting thing with them. They offered like an overview package for $300 that showed you the entire process. Then yeah, it's expensive. It goes into, okay, now I have my sketch and design. I found some fabric depending on how nice you want it can go anywhere from $4 or $5 a yard to $15 to $20 a yard. It's a range. When you get into production, it goes way down because you're buying more. So that's a range. pattern making, $75 an hour, 2 to 3 to 4 to $5 5 hours just to get one design. Then you need to grade it or revise it. Like, so overall, I'd say it was a good $8,000 to $10,000 to start my first line just to get something made, and a few pieces produced. I won $12,000 in my pitch competition, so that covered that, but it didn't cover my first production run. So I had to get orders, and that's something I learned too. I thought, oh, I just sell it when I got it. No, I highly recommend you build your brand first. You get people to follow you, and then when you're ready, you can put out a pre-order saying, I'm dropping this style in 2 weeks. Who wants it? It's for sale. I'll give you a discount if you buy it now. And then you know exactly how many you sold. You have your money up front. And then you can find, if you can find somebody like me or somebody else to manufacture it quickly with 2 to 3 weeks, then you can get going well enough. The traditional way of doing it is working backwards. So the traditional way with a lot of designers is that they sell to so they do all that work of getting the sample made, then they go out and pitch it to different retailers, whether it's local boutiques or huge chain stores. You have to know people in that. That's way off in the distance, but they would do that. They take their couple of designs and say, here's what I, have this season. What would you like to order? I'd like 500 of this, 100 of this, 200 of that. Great. It'll be a 2-month lead time. Okay. So then you go back to your manufacturer, say, I have this many orders, please produce this many. And then it gets sold to the retailer, and you only make a wholesale cost profit. So that's the old way of doing it. And that's changing so much because there's not seasons anymore. There's not like summer, spring, or fall, winter. There is, but it's changing. People are just putting stuff out there anytime now. Again, there's so much to talk about, but that's my initial investment. And that's easily how much it'll cost. But if you start your own and just do little things on the side, you don't have to spend that much. That's like, you can spend a couple $100 and get going, and then you can go from there. Yeah. I don't want to discourage you, but it depends on how serious you are and where you want to go with it. I would get the experience first and start with a few small designs and get your fabric from wherever local clothing, fabric store, and just start. That's the biggest part.
All right. Thank you so much, Erica. We are nearing 1 p.m. now, so we have to wrap this up. In the chat, I just put a Google form where all our participants can fill it out to be eligible for the raffle. Excuse me. And Erica, if there are any contact links that you would like to send the participants, you can send those over to the Codista email, and we will share them all at the end of the conference. And now to end this out, we would like to take a group photo together. So if you're comfortable with opening your video, you can go ahead and do that, and we'll take a photo. All right. 3,
Maybe I should stop.
2, 1. I'll pick another one. Just
Hello, everyone. Nice to see you.
Thank you for speaking. It was really inspirational.
Oh, good. Yeah, feel free to. Yeah, I'll send the email like you said, and they'll send it out. You can email me at any time.
Thank you.
2, 1. All right. That'll be it. Thank you, everyone. And we have another workshop in 30 minutes.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.